Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you and welcome to our presentation today, a year in review and a preview of what's to come. We're very lucky to have an update from the Information Technology Committee, as we did. I think it was right around this time last year. It's a little bit of a blur, but I think it was in April of last year. So I think this is maybe a new UPC PVSchools tradition, which I really like. Um, it's been a really big crazy year for technology, and thank goodness for technology. And we really appreciate the opportunity to learn more from Mr. Jeff Billings, who's is PV's IT director, and Ms. Samantha Doyle, who is the assistant IT director. And we're going to learn about what has transpired over the last year and what plans they have in the works for next year. And I just want to give a thank you and a shout out to George. George Gonzalez has just been instrumental in helping keeping communication and facilitating and organizing this program. So thank you to George and welcome everyone. I'm going to pass it over to you, Mr. Jeff.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. And I shout out to George as well, but to both of you for keeping this topic on the radar. As we learned this year, it was pretty important that we had some good information technology, and pretty important that we identify where we need to grow and get better. And that's kind of what this presentation is about. It's basically around three major themes that don't sound real exciting, but they really speak to the core of what information technology has provided to this year and a half we've all been through. And those things are access. How do we solve the access challenges? And they range from don't have it to don't have very good to, there's some real equity and issues there. And that can lead to gaps. Then it's not just access, but what's the reliability of that access? Do students have, do parents have, and do teachers have what they need when they need it? And that has created some real interesting questions all the way from, what extensions, but are the extensions secure? Which leads us into another area. And in case you don't keep up with security and privacy like I do, and I would question you if you did, but there's been K-12 is this. It's been bubbling, but it's definitely hit top of list on a number of lists for breaches and attacks. We're considered what some would call a soft target. I kind of take offense to that, but that's okay if that's what they want to call us. But that's just kind of gone through the roof. So the access and the reliability and security, you have to match all three. And sometimes they conflict with each other. Then within those three domains, we want to specifically talk about the networks, the devices, and the platform. And so it's access, once they have access, what do they have access with? And what kind of platform can we deliver? So we'll talk about that some. With that, the network, as you know, and have lived and experienced the good, the bad, the ugly, and beautiful about all of this. But there was very rapid pivoting that had to occur. And effectively what we were doing is going from one managed wide area network that has approximately 50 local area networks to some 14,000 networks, managed or unmanaged, secured or unsecured, very quickly. So it went from 1 to 14,000 plus. And in order to do that, we had to provide some functional level of access, reliability, and security. I can tighten down on security, but it doesn't make it real functional for access. I can open up access like crazy, but that may give me some problems in reliability and security. All in all, I think we were largely successful. But we took some pretty good hits in some areas that we know we need to improve in. One of them is we got to have better granularity of management and filtering. I made a decision earlier that reliability and access needed to be very important. And as we got deeper into it, the clients, the parents, the guardians wanted more granularity. I sometimes, I think where a lot of it is heading is analogous to IEPs, where every student has an individualized education plan. As that concept spreads more and more, I see what every kid is also going to need, and I shouldn't say kid, I apologize for that. Every student is going to need is what I call an individualized web plan, so that they have access to this during these hours, but not to this. There's just a tremendous amount of granularity. So then the other big thing we need to come up with, and we have proposals in before cabinet right now for effectively a private LTE, because right now we're paying for hotspots, but that comes out of precious dollars and it's not sustainable. So we're looking at a private LTE. We've got proposals before cabinet right now, starting with Echo, Palomino, Vista Verde, Greenway, and a little bit of North Canyon High School, which has a high percentage of the hotspots we had to deploy. If that model works the way I say it will work, but we're effectively looking at private network throughout the communities. So it's doable, and it's being seriously looked at as using some ESSER funds, ESSER funds, depending on how you want to say it, to pilot that. Sam, you got anything you want to say on this in particular?
I was just going to add, if you want to throw numbers out there, just to talk about how many hotspots, it was pretty remarkable how we were able to get hotspots so quickly, get them out to families. So right now we currently have 900 hotspots checked out to students across the district. So, when Jeff talks about sustainability and rather than paying those monthly service charges to Verizon or T-Mobile as we continue forth in this journey, making it to where it's more sustainable and it can affect the entire community, and it's housed internally within PV.
Yeah, so it's literally, they would have for those who may need it, or parents who would prefer to be on it, having an LT network dedicated to just that machine. You can only get that machine onto the network. It doesn't interfere with mom and dad's business or whatever they may have going on. It's a separate network. So secured and managed in that way. So it is a thought process we're looking at. Devices, Sam will have a lot to speak of, because I said, hey, Sam, I got a project for you coming back from that meeting, the first meeting we had with the cabinet. We got to figure out how to deploy 30,000 devices real quick, and 3,000 plus to employees, because we not only had to move students into the cloud, but we had to move employees. And for those of you who work in businesses or organizations, that's quite an undertaking. It's massive, and I'm sure you know. But it's not like I only had to move 3,000 employees to the cloud and make it secure and make it reliable and have them access to whatever they need to have access to, but the students as well. And again, it's the same thing. It has to be a functional level of access, reliability, and security. And I felt pretty good about it. There were a few things I felt like we really got to do a lot of improvement in certain areas, but and then Sam was right in the middle, or right at the start of trying to standardize a plan, which got torn up. And so she's trying to get that corralled and moved it back in, and working with ITC, which is George, and I saw Mark's name up there. They both serve on it, so thank you very much. So Sam, you want to talk about trying to standardize moving forward?
Devices. I live, breathe, sleep, eat devices. I just feel like it's my whole life. But yeah, we were able to get devices out. I know that Jessica had mentioned or alluded to the fact that we met like a year ago. And when we were talking to you, we were talking about the rollout of take-home devices. So as you can imagine, things expedited. So we went from just having one high school pilot it, and then eventually we're going to roll it out. And then we went to every single K-12 site was immediately thrown into take-home devices. So that was definitely a huge challenge. And like Jeff alluded to, we had to get employees set up, because a lot of our employees down at the district office, when you're talking finance and HR and payroll, they all operate off of desktops. And so obviously those aren't easily, accessible at home. So we really had to rethink, and it's forced us to, look into the future and make some decisions that, God forbid this should ever happen again, but that, employees, students, that we can pivot if needed. So one of the things that we've looked at, from an employee standpoint, is for those desktops is utilizing monitors and docking stations, to where every employee has a monitor or a laptop that they can, functionally take home back and forth, should the work from home or pivot ever have to happen again in the future. So that was kind of one thing internally that we discussed. Not only that, but just the sustainability of, employees, and if every employee has a laptop and all workstations have a docking station and a monitor, it makes it easier for those situations where in front office you have a admin assistant filling in for a records secretary because she's out. All they have to do is swap devices. So a lot of internal reflection there, making some changes on the staff end, student end. We deployed every device that we could get our hands on, and that caused a lot of pain points in the sense of just support, because every site kind of had different devices or different models of Chromebooks. Thank God they were all Chromebooks, but every different type of device. So interactive, non-interactive, some of them were, nearing end of life. Some of them were brand new. And so it created a support challenge. It created, chargers, and making sure they had matching chargers if the student broke a charger, and being able to replace it. So that kind of just gave us more reason to jump back on that standardizing path. And so we had a lot of conversation in ITC about standardizing on everything. But because of the chaos surrounding this year, we said, let's just start with student devices and move forward. Then we'll talk about displays and what all that stuff looks like. But we started with standardizing student devices. We had some great conversations, all grade levels, kinder through 12th. We had representation from principals and teachers and support staff. And we just recently, last Thursday, agreed upon the standard moving forward of interactive Chromebooks for kinder through 12th grade students. Keeping in mind that one of our biggest areas for discussion was kinder. A lot of kindergarten students, roughly around 40% of kindergarten classrooms, currently use iPads. And so we decided that we were going to kind of phase it in to where they would, those kindergarten classrooms would also get interactive Chromebooks, and they would be able to continue using those iPads until they reach end of life or are no longer able to update. So that's late breaking news for you guys all to have. And then as far as the need, we talked about refresh and replacement of so many devices, and making sure we clean up our inventory process, because we've worked a lot with like Destiny and Follett, and making sure that we have the most up-to-date recent information. And it helps us when we make purchases come July 1st to know what's out there and make sure that it's accurate. Anything else you want to add, Jeff?
No, I think I think the numbers that Sam had for the next bid hit was about 2.8 million of Chromebooks that are brand new, coming to kind of flush out and get everybody in a better place as we get ready for the next year. So that's we truly believe that it is going to be anytime, anywhere access. So that's where we're heading. On the platform, this is where a lot of school districts struggled, and we where Sam got older in the background on this first project, because I said, "Hey Sam, you did good on that deployment. I got another project for you." Sorry. We opted to go for Google Classroom because of the scalability and reliability type issues, and it's all integrated. And we did something that had never been done before. We pre-populated, and we're going to continue, tens of thousands of Google Classrooms for teachers that are auto-rostered, standards-aligned content. So it was, all the content was there. Now, teachers could, by manipulating the navigation of the interface, they could say, I want these 4, I want these 2, I don't want these, I want to add some of their own resources, which many of them did. But to have all that content, in fact, Google has done a write-up on it. We shared how we did it in the background. We did some scripting and utilizing some tools. API, open API tools is what they call them. And it was really quite impressive. I know a lot of school districts have been in contact with me, and I'm sharing them information. But that we took our standards aligned content and grouped it all together in a Google Classroom so that teachers could make assignments, drag lessons, that kind of thing. And because that was a big deal. What are we going to make every teacher have to go in and populate with content? Well, that didn't sit too good with my boss, Dan Corson. And it didn't sit good with me. And so we took off on this journey in the spring of 2020, early, I think it was like early March, we got started and kept working on it. And the pivoting also included thousands, every day there were thousands of daily audio video conferencing. And by and large, it worked pretty good. Google Meet got better with their tools. We, at the time, were very concerned with a couple of other platforms who have gotten better. And Google Meet's gotten better. In fact, if you look at all of from Teams to Zoom to Meet to WebEx to Big Blue Button to GoTo to all of them have gotten better, much better. And so that's good. We also did something that was presented to the CTE across the state. We rolled out VDI infrastructure for thousands of students and employees. And that was while post-secondary and business have made progress in the VDI, K-12, that was very unique. There were others across the country that were doing it, but it's basically, you can take a Chromebook or anything. You can take your phone or a Mac or a Windows or whatever you want. And if you're taking a class like Photoshop, you can connect to a virtual server that has the processing power and the application and the licensing. And your Chromebook basically just becomes like a dummy terminal that's kind of dating myself. That was back in the old days with mainframe computers. You had dummy terminals, keyboards and a screen that connected to the big computer in the sky, the mainframe. Well, that's the same concept of virtual desktop infrastructure. And we rolled that, and kids in engineering doing engineering, like AutoCAD, kids that were doing marketing or Photoshop or programming environments, Python, Java, you name it. We were able to support those infrastructures, and it also supported our employees. And by the way, can I say, during the summer of 2020, we cut over to a new financial HR system. Right in the middle of all of this. It was pretty impressive. What we need is we want to fine tune, but Google Meet has really stepped up. I think Zoom had identified some functionality that others did not have. They have them now, the moderator controls. And they got a lot better with security. We had a few Zoom bombing inside of Meets and that we had to address, as did all K-12s. And latency issues we still work on. It depends on the internet and Wi-Fi connection they have at home. George's house. If George is working and he's sucking all the bandwidth from his home Wi-Fi, then his kids may complain at him. So, there's always these little issues you have to resolve. We need a new platform for asynchronous schooling, and that's moving forward. And what I mean by that is PV Online. We need a new platform, and be talking to you about that. It's going to require some UPC and some parent participation. Just saying, George and Mark. Just saying. That's a very, very important topic. It's been many years since we've seriously looked at, back when I first did the AOI application. It's better than 10 years since we've seriously looked at the platform, and the world has changed. And so that's moving forward. I've talked to Dan and them. Whatever the community settles on, Marks, there's, you got the traditional LMSs. Canvas is a good one. Schoolology. I like OpenEdX. You also need to look at, what's the roadmap for Classroom? You got to look at Apex, Edgenuity, all of them. But the committee has to decide what do they want to be when they grow up. And from there, we define the specifications. And from the specifications, let the competition begin. So, and then there's discussions. I'm involved with a cabinet on a new model for, I think they're looking at called PV Virtual, I think is kind of the name. I don't know if that's official or not, but for a partial synchronous, partial asynchronous model of learning. And we have to also continue to support and evolve the flip model of on-premise. So those are the different models that's shaken out from this. And IT will be supporting and helping to vision it. So do you have anything to say on the platform or anything? You did a good job on that, Sam. You should be congratulated on Google Classroom. I know it was very touch and go, but nice job.
And to that point, it was probably one of the biggest headaches that I've gone through in my current position. But at the end of the day, I told the team that I worked with, as well as the curriculum department, be proud of yourselves, because in a time of chaos and a time of uncertainty and change, we were able to give our students and our teachers something consistent, and that was our guaranteed and viable curriculum. So, a lot of school districts jumped ship and went to Edgenuity or, Florida Virtual and all sorts of different programs, and they bought them because they were the easy thing to do. So we didn't do that, and it was a challenge, and it was hard, and it was stressful, but at the end of the day, it was the service that we needed to provide for our teachers and for our students, to give them that consistency of, our content's going to be the same. Like, we're going to make sure that you have these packaged classrooms that allow you to access the content and resources you need to continue the PV way.
And it saved teachers untold number of hours. Just, if they would have had to create something themselves, it would take, I don't know, it would be huge. And that didn't make sense. So we did that, and it's pretty good, and impressed the likes of a company like Google. And I'll be happy to share some of when that report comes out, or that whatever they did a study on it. So it was kind of interesting. Go to the next one, Sam. Yeah, so that's kind of where we've been and what some of the needs that we saw. So starting the end of May, actually it starts, one of the things, I'm starting on the 23rd. So the challenge we have here was the trauma that I was going through, and it was trauma. I had a kid. I'm guardian of a kid at home, and I was living all this stuff right along with everybody else. And but the trauma I went through as an IT director is you need to be extremely careful and become risk adverse, because 2 years ago, if I'd have broke something, well, okay, everybody's mad at me, but the kids are in school and everything's okay. You break something and your online schooling goes down in a pandemic. The only thing's worse is if you get hit with a ransomware that knocks you out 3 weeks, that kind of a scenario. So I was very risk adverse, making really big changes, and kind of kicked a few things down the road, because if we break something, I really didn't want to go into Sam's office and say, you've got to come up with a plan to touch 30,000 machines in a pandemic. And so that that created a lot of trauma, because for me personally, maybe I took it too personally. I don't know. But what's coming up is thousands of new devices, tens of thousands we're going to pre-populate the Google Classrooms. Cabinet does not want to, the new normal may shift. There are going to be some things that we want to continue to do. But there's going to be a lot of things we don't want to do. So what do we need to get rid of? What do we need to accelerate? And we're going to continue to get better at that using Google Cloud Platform. There's like 3 biggies out there. There's Amazon Web Service, there's Microsoft Azure, and there's GCP, Google Cloud Platform. We use 2 of them. We use Microsoft Azure and GCP quite heavily, I might add. We're going to get increased granularity of filtering. That starts again on the 23rd with our first school. I've talked to you about the MEST proposal coming into ESER. We were asked, actually Arizona was asked, we are on the internet too now. And that's the same internet that ASU and U of A use. It's the largest national network. It's actually global in impact. Across the country, there's these research and education networks. And we've been on it for a number of years. The first in Arizona to be on it, and we work closely with ASU, NAU, and U of A in that regard. But Arizona was asked to roll out EduRoam and to reach out to K-12s, and they've reached out to us for this thing called EduRoam, and it's global in effect. It's a little far-reaching, but it's kind of it doesn't cost us anything. It's just another service. It's like denial of service I get from being on the Arizona's I2 internet too. It will allow, you can be at ASU, and if you can drill back into PV's network, or you can be on PV's network and drill into U of A's network if you have legitimate purposes for doing that. Once you've authenticated one time, you have access. And we all share that connectivity. That will have big implications for us moving forward as we try to get better and better at stripping out this from secondary to post-secondary. It's too clunky, okay? So this is an example of streamlining that connectivity between secondary and post-secondary. We're going to be rolling out what's called identity automation, which is you're getting away from usernames and password kind of thing, and you're getting more into identities. And this is a way to automate it. It allows us to do better multi-factor. It allows us to do QR codes for the little ones or special needs child that can't remember these. I can't remember my password either, but they're getting so darn complex. But it will allow this type of functionality. So Sam's really focused on that part of it. I'm more focused on, we got to get away from accounts and get more into identities. We're also seeing a big uptick, and we saw a huge from high school athletics to fine arts now wants to stream live and move that. Athletics are now streaming live. Thousands of classrooms every day are streaming. So we've had a big uptick in the whole audio video space. Security, video surveillance, you name it, Center for Teacher Development, all of these kinds of things that are very AV heavy. So we're doing some things to the network to get ready for that, and what's called IoT, which is big. think of a ring, the ring at your home. Okay. That's a consumer-based Internet of Things, right? There's a whole security protocol to that. If you don't set it up right, you may have issues. And what you're seeing from robots to 3D printers to, environmental sensors in the classroom, all of this kind of stuff. All of these things have to be accessible, they have to be reliable, and they have to be secure, just like a computer. So one of the things we're trying to do there is microsegment the network even more. Sam is working on a variety of automation standards, ranging from digital signature, a better way to onboard, to register, to onboard employees, onboard students, all of these kinds of things. Any on the other ones I've already talked about. Sam, anything I'm missing there?
No, I just think to go back to, COVID, when Jeff mentioned access, like access was a big thing when everyone had to pivot. And because of that, it opened up a can of worms as far as apps and extra software and peripherals and all stuff like that. So now we're trying to just pull it back in, and we've identified certain needs. Now we're just trying to develop standards around those needs. So then that way we're not supporting 12 different programs for digital signatures and all of the software to do the same thing. We're trying to just kind of reel it back in and say, okay, here are our needs. Now, based on that, after looking at the reliability, security features, really just drilling in on what is that standard going to be, and then we focus on the onboarding piece of it.
Yeah, well, you got control of the slides, so go to the next one. Huh?
Okay.
Go ahead, Sam.
So this is just some additional happenings. This is by no means all of them, but we just tried to kind of brainstorm some other things happening in IT that we wanted to make you guys as parents aware of. One thing big, as you can imagine, the 13-page enrollment packet that you filled out when you enrolled your students for PVSchool, that was a challenge this year to arrange for parents to come and drop it off, to print it, to be able to do all that stuff. So we had already, prior to COVID, we had been piloting online registration for 5 schools across the district. And this was another recommendation that came from ITC. But we decided that, starting in for the fiscal year for the school year 21-22, that all of our schools were going to go online registration. So we have dived in, really created a support plan, a training plan. We're in the process of and almost finished with translations for our support site and making sure that parents have all the resources that they need to be successful with this, as well as making sure internally as a department, we have extra staff that are ready to handle phone calls and support should it be needed during this online, the first summer of online registration. So that's something that's exciting. And I think it's going to be very beneficial especially for those families moving from another state and coming in. They're going to be able to do all of this online without ever really having to step foot in the school office. And the second thing is transitioning the open enrollment process. So again, we were starting this prior to COVID, but it definitely, like everything else, got expedited. So now, instead of doing the paper open enrollment process, many of you may have open enrolled your children into other schools other than their home school. And we created an online database to allow us to do that talks directly to our student information system and is very seamless for parents. So that's been, we're just trying to do as much as we can to make parents' lives easy, but then also get away from the paper process and bring ourselves into the, today's century. So, and then Jeff, go ahead and jump in for WIT.
Yeah, it's a passion of mine, has been for a number of years, women in information technology. We looked at our numbers 6-7 years ago, and every time it seemed to be at the secondary, whenever there was something technical affiliated with the course, we saw very low participation rates by students. In fact, when we opened computer science at Crest, there was, I believe, one girl. There might have been two the first year, and now there's quite a number. And so it's a global problem that to recruit, nurture, and get half of the population into solving some of these technical problems. And so that's what WIT does. We get into, or have in the past, artificial intelligence and do a lot of cybersecurity, Internet of Things. This past summer, we did COVID analysis and response, everything from public service announcements to modeling epidemiology. The girls all took a course from Johns Hopkins in epidemiology. It was quite impressive. This year, we're going to be doing sustainable development goals. But what's really impressive here is that 3 former graduates who are all in post-secondary are part-time working for technical firms here locally. And actually, some of their work, they're going to work on some of our stuff. So we're building this pipeline, and this summer we're expanding it down to try to tempt a little bit at the middle school as well. So it's really doing well. Some other real cool things. We are now an official, the IT department on behalf of the district, an ETS authorized testing center. And what that means is there's a thing, y'all know College Board probably more so from the AP, but another thing that's big on the East Coast is this thing called CLEP. It's not so big in the Southwest for some reason. But that's where a student can take a course, and if they pass the exam, or they don't have to take the course, if you know the material, take it, and you can get college credit through College Board. Just like in AP, you can take the course, which is kind of good, but if you pass the exam, you get college credit, kind of thing. If you don't pass the exam, you don't get college credit. You might get high school credit. But so we're an authorized testing center, and we've got some students signed up this summer to be taking this course on their own and to be taking the exam. What we didn't know at the time, but we were hoping we could expand ETS, and now I'm pursuing paraprofessional. So our employees that are trying to get into paraprofessional can take these exams. And this is for students, the exam is free. The course is free. That's a big issue. So we also have rolled out this summer edX and Coursera, where students can go online and take courses for free, and at a cadence that we can handle, can get professional certifications if they pass the exam in those courses. These Coursera and edX are pretty big in the business world, in the adult world. Some companies are now doing all of their professional development through that platform. It's really phenomenal. You can even get bachelor's and master's degrees through a lot of universities, Georgia Tech, University of Michigan, these kinds of things. The 3 big entities that were behind edX and Coursera were Stanford, Harvard, and MIT, and it's now kind of gone viral. It's huge. And we're bringing that opportunity to our high school students and employees. We also now, we're a Certiport authorized testing center. And to give you a feel for it, we had over 300 kids this spring, high school students, mainly CTE, but not all of them, went for industry certification exams from Microsoft and Adobe and the likes of AutoCAD, these kinds of things. So these certifications are, in the technical fields, are becoming very valuable. They're not on par with a post-secondary, getting a bachelor's degree, but they're getting there. In terms of economics, they're pretty impressive. You get some certifications, and you're going to get job interviews for very good pay. So And it's just another service we're trying to bring to the kids and to the employees of PV. So we're authorized now in Certiport and ETS College Board, and to provide Microsoft exams, Adobe exams, AutoCAD, and through Coursera you can do Google, and through IBM and through edX you can do IBM. So it's pretty cool. Go ahead, Sam. So in summary, ASU had some struggles this past year. They had their problems. So did Amazon and Zoom and Cisco and Google and Microsoft, Cox, Netflix. Netflix kind of, they dropped their high definition down to standard definition they had some, for a couple of months there, they were pumping that out at standard definition, which I thought was interesting. Department of Defense has had some issues, recent security that hit the U.S. Treasury and a whole bunch of people. K-12s are on the radar, and so are hospitals. There's real significant issues, and a lot of it's security, but a lot of it's reliability and access. The whole world had the scale unbelievable. Well, so did the families. We had some struggles. So did some of the students and teachers and principals, and so did IT. We had our struggles, but with that said, I'd just like to say that I think we've been largely successful, and we're going to be better than ever. I really feel that way. I'm just thrilled to death to be working with somebody like Sam, and she won't say it, but I know she's thrilled to be working with me too. So, but I just wanted to thank the families. You gave us a chance, and we're trying to live up to that chance as best we can. We're not done. We're going to be better than ever. So that's all I have right now.
That's all?
Sam?
That was a lot.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Digest that. Wow.
No, that was wonderful. I know I'm going to definitely have to go back and even kind of review a lot of that, because a lot of it, just new terminology, and certainly not in the scope of my world, but just so informative and really exciting to kind of see what is coming next, what is around the corner for PV and all the new and upcoming technology. We do have some participants live, so I just want to see if there were any questions for our presenters while we have them and we have this opportunity. You can feel free to shout out your question or use the chat feature, whichever works best for you, but we'll give it just a couple minutes in case there are any questions.
I saw Mark's question. I think I answered it. I saw it fly by about, he was asking about a couple of different platforms, and yeah, it's a pure RFP. If we can facilitate on what do we want this online asynchronous world to be like, then we'll write the technical specs, and then you go out to bid. But we got to get consensus on what that should look like. That's going to require some parents and teachers and administrators and a lot of people. It's got to come to some consensus, because different tools are better at different things.
Oh, I think that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. George, how about you? Did you have anything you wanted to add as a very informed and active community member and PD parent?
Oh,
he's tough.
I'm sorry?
I said, George is tough, man. He doesn't let anything slide. He's one of those HR guys.
True, yeah. So, and then of course, certainly had help with Mark and the other IT side, but it's been always a pleasure to be able to serve in this committee for the last few years. And who would have thought a year ago the importance that IT would play? And I still remember the meetings that we were involved in, the different committees, not just IT, but also governance and cybersecurity. I still remember the time that it was spring break, and I was in Rocky Point, and this happened, and I remember shooting an email to Jeff, and knew
I remember that
you guys were neck deep in this. We're working on it, and we know we took that extra week and came right back. I think probably one of the first districts be able to do that. And it's really been a journey. And frankly, thanks to both of you and the cabinet and the board and all the members in UPC, really, it's made a difference. And I think that
I gotta say one thing. Sorry, but I remember seeing Jessica at the first meeting when they this was like before schools were even shut down, but like it may be coming very quickly, right? And I remember Jessica looking at me, and I swear that it was kind of like, Billings, you better have your ducks in a row, because you better be ready. And that's kind of what it felt like to me. I said, yeah, I got you, Jessica. So it really does take a lot of people, you know, Jessica to realize some things, the cabinet to realize things, parents to realize things. And what I've really enjoyed in the data governance and cybersecurity, which was actually a George idea, is student voice. We have two students, now three. We've got an intern actually in training, and they are to hear that student perspective. Isn't that great, George? I mean,
it is fantastic. I still remember when we had one, and I still remember one specific meeting that all of us basically were headed one direction. I remember asking the question, I think it was Oceana, or I forget who, but I said, what do you think from the student perspective? And in a matter of 3 minutes, she just changed the dynamics, and all of us looked at each other going like, I think we're changing.
Yep,
So
she's right.
Said, we need more. Yeah, I go, she's right. I go, we need more. So
yeah.
Fantastic job with women in information technology. Absolutely.
Yeah, sharp kids. Y'all are providing us really sharp students. So
they did a wonderful presentation for us too last year, if I remember, and I was just blown away by what they had to say and the work that they were doing. It's just incredible. So
yeah, it's a different modality, and I'm trying to scale it more now. There's a lot of issues that are not going to be solved without diversity of perspective. And, you know, if you can't get diversity of perspective, you're not going to get them solved. So you may think you're getting them solved, but it ain't going to happen. So it's good. So George made that comment, I remember one time, and I followed up on it, and the rest is history, so to speak. They have been significantly impacted me in terms of, you know, some brains and some backbone, you know, to get on with this, you know, and in a nice way. In a nice way. So it's good. Kind of like what Sam does in a nice way sometimes.
You call it nice? That's the first time you've said that. To Mark's point though, he mentioned it takes a village, and I do have to say there's no way Jeff and I could have done this without our department. Our department has been so adaptable. I think back to last March when we were handing devices out to students, and our entire SIS department that, you know, normally only manages student information system and Infinite Campus, they were out there with masks and taking apart computer, carts of computers, and it was an all hands on deck thing. And, you know, it was remarkable to see how our department has really transformed through all of this. So.
Wonderful. I mean, when things kind of just run smoothly, that means like, you know, you just know how much work and thought goes into it to ensure that things are running smoothly. And so that has not gone unnoticed. And just as a parent and just a community member, thank you to your whole team for all that you're doing. And thank you for being proactive. And thank you for looking to the future too, to ensure that PV remains competitive and our students are ready to take on this new world. You know, I certainly have learned a lot that just through this experience in helping them, that has then ended up helping me in my career and in my work. So, I mean, it's just,
isn't that the truth?
I mean, it's been just kind of a wild ride for sure this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember this summer with WIT, you know, we got together every day, man. We got together, you know, all virtual, all this kind of stuff. And darned if those students didn't provide me some social, emotional stability. You know, I mean, it was the darndest thing, you know, they just great young people. So, you know, thank you, parents. They really are. I know I know what it's like being a parent. It is hard work.
Well, you hope that next generation is smarter and kinder and better than you. And I feel very confident that the next generations are all of those things. So
we are in the hands. So
I think so.
For this opportunity today, and I'm going to just say, if people have questions, would it be okay if I just invite them to email them over to me after they view this, since not everybody had an opportunity to watch it live, and we can kind of
Sure, sure. And make sure you send it to Sam.
I know. Welcome to my world.
Oh, come on. You dish it out just as much as you take it.
I do. I keep tallies. So everyone he sends me, I make sure we're even.
That's how it should be. So really
Yeah.
appreciate it. And I know we're probably going to have a lot of people tuning in over the next couple of weeks. So I'm going to just put that out there. If you have questions and you viewed this, feel free to email me at info@pvupc.org. And if you have any questions related to today's presentation, I will work with both Ms. Doyle and Mr. Billings to get the answers for you, and get you a response as quickly as possible. And if you want the slides, you can also reach out and I will send you the slides as well. So thank you again. I look forward to another opportunity where we'll get to learn some more about all the work that you all are doing. And I kind of suspect we might have you on a little bit sooner than this time next year, with all of the new stuff that's coming around the corner, with, like you were talking about earlier, with the PV virtual or whatever the new names are going to be, to kind of get the information out there. So really excited about that, and excited to learn more. And thanks again to George.
My pleasure. Thanks, Mark, too. So thanks, Samantha, Jeff, appreciate it, and all of you.
Thanks all around. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. And we hope you have a great evening.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.